Hello, and welcome to our yoga class. Today we're going to look at cultivating yoga as a habit, as a daily practice, and what is involved in making that transition and why that is an important transition to consider making. So yoga was never designed as something to do once a week. It was always considered to be a daily practice, and it is most effective when it is done on a day-to-day basis. When you are young, it's not as important, but as we grow older, it becomes increasingly important that we do a little bit every day. Even missing 2 or 3 days can set us back when we're seniors. So as we get older, it becomes more important, but it also can become challenging in unique ways. For instance, if we set our goals and measure our success in our yoga practice by traits or measures that can peak at a certain point and then diminish. For instance, stamina, flexibility. Even if you do yoga every day, there'll still come a day when you are at your absolute peak of strength or stamina or flexibility. And the next day and every day thereafter you may be losing ground. Okay? And the problem with that is that when you need yoga the most, at the second half of your life, it can become frustrating. It can be a daily reminder that you're getting older. So we have to figure out a better way to motivate ourselves and to measure success than by how long you can hold downward facing dog or whether or not you can touch your toes. So let's talk about how to make this a daily practice, and then we'll come back to the type of motivation that will be needed. So the most effective way is to make a commitment. Now most people, when they make commitments, do it poorly and they sabotage themselves. When you make a commitment and you follow through, willpower is strengthened, self-esteem is improved. When you make a commitment and you fail to follow through, then you get a hit on willpower and self-esteem. Okay? So if you're going to make a commitment, it becomes increasingly important that you actually follow through on it. So the type of commitment that I hate is when I hear a student say, oh wow, I love this yoga class, I'm going to commit to do it every day for 2 hours for the rest of my life. Okay? Because 2 hours is a long time to do yoga, and it's very easy to talk yourself out of doing 2 hours of yoga, to realize I don't have time to do that today. So you have a high rate of failure. Not only that, you won't know whether you succeeded until you die. Okay? On your deathbed you'll get that little woohoo, I did it. So the benefit of having completed a goal and the self-esteem boost is put off into an indefinite future, but the possibility of failure becomes more prevalent and day to day. So instead of doing that, I like the following type of commitment. First, short term. Let's say a week to start with. Second, positive, not negative. So goals should always be stated in a positive context. And then third, success clearly defined, not vague, so that you really do know whether or not you succeeded. It's not a questionable, I kind of did it. It's either yes or no. You did it or you didn't do it. And then you want to build in a celebration. If you don't build in the celebration ahead of time for completing your goal, your subconscious mind will provide a celebration, and it invariably will be the shadow of the goal. So for someone that succeeded on a diet, the impulse would be to celebrate by having something like ice cream that you've been denying yourself. So if you don't have a clear idea of how you're going to celebrate success, quite often the shadow will emerge without you realizing it. So those are just the basics. And then one final one, when you make a commitment, you should think of it as sacred. Okay? Because what's at stake is self-esteem, okay, and willpower, two of the most important things that we have as human beings, and things that we want to invest in and build, not undermine. So the type of commitment I like is something along the lines of I'm going to commit to do at least 5 minutes every day for a week. And if I succeed, I'll celebrate by and then maybe buying a new sticky mat, okay, or a prop that you've always wanted, or a book or something that moves you further along in that same direction that you're moving in. So why 5 minutes? If you commit to do an hour and a half of yoga, there'll come a day when it may be very difficult for you to do that. You can talk your way out of it. However, it's very difficult to talk your way out of 5 minutes. Okay? And where is the real battle being fought? It is not hard to finish washing dishes once you've started. The battle is actually showing up to start the washing. The battle is actually sitting down on the sticky mat and starting your practice. Continuing your practice is actually quite easy. It's starting that's difficult. So we make the goal as easy as possible so that we don't have an excuse not to do it, at least 5 minutes. Now, if 5 minutes turns into 2 hours, fantastic. If it doesn't matter, because we fulfilled the obligation of 5 minutes. So on a really bad day, when you could argue you need yoga the most, but there may come a day when you really don't have time, it's okay, you do your 5 minutes. Okay? And at the end of the week, you celebrate. Now, as your willpower and confidence and self-esteem improve, you might start going out longer periods of time rather than every week. You might set goals a little further out and a little bit more challenging. At some point, though, we have to make a shift. And this is an important shift to make. Don't make it prematurely, but when you're ready to, you move beyond the question. And what I mean by moving beyond the question is you stop asking the question, do I have time? Do I feel like doing yoga? Most of you probably brush your teeth every night. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like it? You don't ask yourself, do I have time to? In fact, there is no conversation around brushing your teeth. You just do it. You've moved beyond the question. At some point, you stopped asking yourself the question and you just do it. Okay, that old Nike commercial, just do it. So with our yoga practice, at some point we want to get to where we don't even ask ourselves, we don't question it, we just start doing yoga every day. And if you commit to 5 minutes, then on a bad day you still do your yoga 5 minutes and then you move on to something else. So let's come back now to that's commitments. Let's come back to how do we make sure that our yoga practice itself is such that we can enjoy it. If we don't enjoy yoga, then the odds of us doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future are diminishing and rare. And the sad thing is, if you aren't enjoying the yoga, why would you be doing it 50 years from now? There are other ways you can stay healthy. Yoga isn't the only path. So what's important is finding a path that resonates with you and that you enjoy. And when I talk about enjoying yoga, a lot of people enjoy the benefits of yoga. They enjoy how they feel after they finish doing yoga. They enjoy the expectation of benefits in the future. What I'm talking about is enjoying the present moment experience. Being present and enjoying the experience of doing yoga, and how do we get to there? So a couple things. When I studied with Thich Nhat Hanh, he taught us walking meditation, and I was practicing, and it was at a convent in Boerne, Texas, and I was doing an outdoor walking meditation, and I had my hands behind my back. I was doing a slow walk. I was breathing. I was counting my breath, I was walking in rhythm with the breathing, and I was meditating. And I noticed that Thich Nhat Hanh was watching, and I really kind of went through real quick in my mind, okay, am I doing this right? Am I walking right? Am I, hands right, everything? And I kind of tensed up a little bit. And he approached me, and I stopped, and he kind of gestured, swept his arm across, and I followed his movement, and he reminded me that we were in the middle of a beautiful manicured garden in a convent, and that there's a beautiful view over the valley. And he said, it's okay to stop and smell the roses. And Krishnamurti came at it from a little bit different direction. Krishnamurti said that he was talking about meditation. He said meditation cannot be taught. And I didn't understand that fully until I was teaching a meditation class, teaching meditation to others. And I was doing exercise, counting back from 10, breathe in, 10, breathe in, 9, breathe in, 8, counting back. If you lose your place, start over. And if you get to 0, start over. Afterwards, I went around the room, did a little check-in, and when I got to Susan, I asked her, well, how was that for you? And Susan was middle-aged, first-time meditator. And she said, oh, it's much more difficult than I thought it would be. And that's actually a good sign. It's not an easy exercise. And I asked her what the problem was. And she says, well, the first time I was counting back and I got to 7. And then I realized I was thinking about what to buy from the grocery store. So I went back to 10. And the second time I got down to about 5 and I saw a beautiful white light. And it was the most beautiful light I've ever seen. And I felt as if it was a field of pure love. And I felt my cells dissolving and my whole being starting to flow towards this white light of pure love. It says, and I remembered the exercise and I came back to the counting meditation, but it was really difficult. And that for me was a turning point because that's when I realized what Krishnamurti was trying to say. Okay? Also what Thich Nhat Hanh was trying to tell me. We have a tendency to learn a technique, fantastic, but then we cling to it. And the technique won't take you all the way. Technique only takes you part way. And at that point we become attached to the technique itself, and that becomes its own trap. So at some point you have to let go of technique and move beyond technique. And so that's what I invite you to think about with your yoga. The first half of your yoga life should be about learning technique. But at some point, when you have the technique down, the technique becomes the limiting factor. And the trick is then to move beyond the technique into the experience of doing yoga. Krishnamurti talked about meditation being like coming upon a snowfall and fields of white snow without a single footprint. And it's this idea of being in a place where no one's been before, in the present moment. And no two present moments are the same. So I'd like to take a few moments just to make sure you're comfortable, and we'll begin our practice. Draw the flesh out from under the sit bones, tilt the pelvis forward, lift through the waist, through the sternum, through the collarbones, broaden through the shoulder girdle. Relax your face, the jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth. And slowly, lazily, delicately begin to float your head around to the left or to the right. Just noticing how that feels. Roll the shoulders around in big circles. One after the other and then together. And then leading with the right shoulder, lift the shoulder, find the shoulder blade, draw it around and down, lift the chest, cross the left hand over, lift, expand, and rotate. Breathe with a complete breath, or even better, a complete back breath if you remember how. Now, as you rotate, don't rotate to see how far you can rotate. Instead, rotate for the maximum pleasure. Focus on the sensations you're creating, and then move beyond technique. Undulate, adjust, feel your way. You'll never find your way by following other people. Lift the left shoulder, draw the shoulder blade around and down, lift through the chest, cross the right hand over. As you rotate, lift, broaden, expand, rotate, and breathe. And then breathing deeply. And again, trying to feel your way away from any discomfort, no matter how subtle, into any pleasure. Couple more breaths, breathing deep. Coming back to center, circling with the ribs, first one direction and then the other. And rolling out the shoulders. Okay. Now, when you move beyond your teacher, beyond the guru, beyond the tradition, and begin to forge your own way, you have to have something, a compass, something to help you navigate, because now you don't have an authority figure to turn to. So pleasure is a really good way to measure, but you have to understand healthy pleasure from unhealthy pleasure. And so this was something I gave a lot of thought to early in my practice. And I was talking to an Indian yogi, and I asked him about how do you tell healthy pleasure from unhealthy pleasure. And the advice he gave me has stayed with me. He said, if your initial encounter with something new is wonderful, pleasant, pleasurable, your second encounter is fairly good, the third encounter, it was okay, he said, run. Okay? If it takes more and more to get back to the same level of enjoyment each time, he says that is something that is addictive and that tends not to be good. So for example, cocaine. Each time, it doesn't give you quite the same high. Sugar is another example. And when I asked him, well, what is a healthy pleasure? What's a pleasure you can trust? And he said, when the enjoyment increases with repetition, okay, he says that's a good sign. That's something to give a little bit more thought to. And the example he gave was downward facing dog. And as a student and as a teacher, very few people ever enjoy down dog when they first start practicing yoga. Okay? But the more you do it, the more you begin to enjoy it, and eventually it becomes its own addiction. Okay? But it's a healthy addiction. It's a pleasure that is healthy. So as we practice our yoga today, I want you to be kind of thinking about that, creating some focusing and measuring success by the quality of the sensations you're able to create in your practice. Let's come to our hands and knees, cat-cow. Hands shoulder width, knees hip width. Spread the fingers wide. A nice firm table. Start each new movement from the hips. Tuck the tailbone, round low back, mid back, upper back. Tuck the chin. Finish exhaling. Lift the tailbone, lower the belly, open the chest, look up, and finish inhaling. On your own, continue. Follow the rhythm of your own breathing. Try not to rush the breath or the movement. Couple more repetitions. Back to neutral. Now add a little asymmetry. Take one hand and move it off your mat and maybe a little back or forward slightly. And maybe bend one elbow or the other or both. And then just feeling your way, improvising. You can rotate the palm in or externally. You can move your elbows, your shoulder blades. Every 3 or 4 breaths, try a new position with the hands, and then without thinking so much, focus on feeling, moving the same way a cat moves, from intuition, from instinct. Two or three more breaths. Coming back to center. We'll try a gentle twist from the cat pose. Take your right hand and just drop down onto the elbow, or if you prefer, you can drop all the way to your shoulder. And then take your left arm and just reach up. Take not the hand, but the shoulder back. Find a neutral position for your head, letting your head turn slightly, breathing into that. Again, adjust, looking for where it feels okay. Switching sides, come back up, do a cat-cow. And then bringing your left elbow or shoulder to the floor, raising the right shoulder. Couple more breaths. Back to center, cat-cow. And back to neutral. Now coming up into a lunge. Step your right foot up towards the front of your mat. You can keep both hands on the floor. If you want a wider lunge, take the left leg, lift the knee, reach it back, and walk the left knee back a little bit. And then to find your stretch, let your hips sink forward and down. Most people will feel this either in the front hip or in the back thigh. Whichever area you're feeling in, adjust so that it feels comfortable. The mistake a lot of people make with stretching is they stretch to the maximum sensation, intensity that they can stand. And the body responds by tightening. The fascia ends up getting tighter, not releasing. So instead, we want to actually focus on finding pleasure. And we don't find pleasure by finding pain and backing away from it. We find pleasure by starting with boredom and then ever so gently, slowly, carefully feeling our way forward. And if we realize it's a little bit unpleasant, we back off, we relax, and we try it again more carefully. Take a breath or two. Now we're going to keep our feet where they are, the right foot near the front of the mat, left foot near the back of the mat, and we're going to switch sides without moving the feet by moving the rest of our body. So take your hands and start walking your hands around to your left, and as you do that, begin tuck the toes on the back foot, lift the left knee, and come around until you're in a forward bend, straddle leg. Then continue to walk your hands until you're facing the back. Set the right knee down and repeat the lunge on the second side. Again, we're trying to create a pleasant, healthy sensation either in the left hip or the right thigh. Three or four breaths. Begin to walk your hands around to the right. Lift the right knee. And then take a moment just stretching the hamstrings, legs wide, feet pigeon-toed. Take a few breaths here. Step your feet together. And bend the knees, roll back up to standing. Float the arms out to the side, and then pendiculating, arching, twisting, yawning. Moving the stretch through the body like a cat. And then coming to Tadasana. Feet spread hip width. Bring your hands into prayer position over the heart. Float the arms overhead. Draw the shoulder blades back and down. Lift the chest forward and up. Releasing into a forward bend, supporting with weight on your hands. And on the inhale, rising up and extending overhead. And on the exhale, releasing into a supported forward bend. Vinyasa Sun Salutation, continue on your own. If it feels okay, you can release into a deeper forward bend. If you have any back issues, though, continue to come down halfway, supporting weight with your hands on your thighs. With each overhead stretch, bring a little warrior energy into the overhead stretch. With each forward bend, a letting go, surrendering into the exhale. Remember to let the knees buckle as you're rolling up, stacking the vertebra. Take a breath or two, and then hold your next overhead stretch and add a side stretch. Lift the left heel, flare the right ribs. Lift the right heel, flare the left ribs. Go side to side. Finishing with a supported forward bend, or if you prefer, working your way deeper into a nice hamstring stretch. Lift one heel, set it down, lift the opposite heel, set it down, move the stretch from one side to the other. Stretch evenly between both legs. Take another breath or two. When you're ready, roll back up to standing. Next, working with a full 12 Step Sun Salutation, come to the front of your mat, bring your hands to prayer position. On an exhale, release your arms. On the inhale, sweep up overhead. Work the overhead stretch. As you release into your forward bend, reach the hips back. Place your hands on the mat even with the big toes. Take the right leg back into a deep lunge. As you step the left leg back, hold your breath for just a moment in plank. And then coming down and pulling through into Cobra, roll the shoulders back, reach the chest forward. Pushing back into downward facing dog. Alternate, bending one knee and reaching through the opposite heel, going side to side. Rolling out the shoulders and the shoulder blades, and just warming up. When you're ready, step the right foot all the way up to the front of your mat for a big lunge. The back knee can rest on the floor or can lift up into a full lunge. When you're ready, on an exhale, step through into a forward bend. On the inhale, float the arms overhead. On the exhale, coming back to prayer position. Again, release the arms as you breathe out, overhead stretch on the inhale. Swan dive on the exhale. This time leading with the left foot, stepping back into a big lunge. Following with the right foot. As you press down, exhale. As you draw through into Cobra, breathe in. Hold here for a breath or two. Press the tops of the feet into the floor, reach the chest forward, roll the shoulders back. Downward facing dog, tuck the toes, lift the tailbone, reach the hips back. Rooting through the heels, lifting through the tailbone. Lengthening through the spine. When you're ready, step the left foot all the way through into a lunge. Breathe in. Step the right foot up into a forward bend as you breathe out. Overhead stretch as you breathe in. And back to prayer. Two more repetitions. Release the arms on the exhale, sweep up on the inhale. Release into a forward bend as you breathe out, stepping back with the right foot, deep lunge. Holding your breath for just a moment as you step back into plank, and on the exhale, pressing down to the floor. On the inhale, draw through into Cobra, roll the shoulders back. On your next exhale, tuck the toes, lift the tailbone, reach the hips away, draw the chest through into downward facing dog. Take a couple of breaths here, working the pose. Leading with the right foot when you're ready, step all the way up to the front of your mat on the inhale. Step the left foot forward into a forward bend on the exhale. Overhead stretch as you breathe in and back to prayer. Last repetition. Release the arms on the exhale, sweep up on the inhale. Forward bend as you breathe out, leading with the left foot, stepping back into a deep lunge. Hold your breath for a moment in plank. Exhale as you press down to the floor. Inhale into Cobra. Take a few breaths here. Press the tops of the feet down. Reach your chest forward. Roll the shoulders back. When you're ready, tuck the toes, reach the hips away, lift the tailbone, downward facing dog. Draw the chest through towards the feet. Float the shoulder blades away from the feet. Broaden the upper back. Coming into your lunge, stepping the left foot up on the inhale. Stepping the right foot up on the exhale. Overhead stretch as you breathe in and back to prayer. Next, working with chair pose. Coming back to our theme, come into chair pose, maybe 10% effort. Float the arms overhead, lift the pelvic floor, draw the abdomen in, lift the chest, bend the knees slightly, tilt forward slightly, reach the hips back slightly. Now organize the pose, play with it. Lift a heel, flare the ribs, roll the shoulders around until you're able to create a pose that feels good, that is utilizing all the core aspects of chair pose, but with a sense of pleasure. Pleasure in the physicality of the pose. Once it starts to feel good, then see if you can take that with you a little deeper, working a little harder. Let your priority be enjoying the work. If you can't enjoy the work, come up 50% or more. Now, stay in the pose, but roll the shoulders around, bend the elbows, reposition, and then come back into the fullest expression. Take a breath and release. Supported forward bend, hands on thighs, the back straight, knees bent slightly, giving your low back a chance to release, and then if it feels okay, you can release the arms and let the head hang. If your back feels vulnerable, continue to support weight with your hands on your thighs. When you're ready, float back up overhead on the inhale. And then again, work your way into a gentle, delicate chair pose. Play with the pose. Try to feel your way into a position that is easy and pleasant, and then take the pleasure with you as you begin to work deeper into chair pose. If you start to fatigue in the upper body, bring your arms down, roll out the shoulders while you continue working the quadriceps. If you get a second wind, float the arms overhead. Take a couple more breaths, working now. And on an inhale, stretch overhead. On the exhale, supported forward bend. Back straight, knees bent slightly, weight supported on your hands. Stay there or release if your low back is relaxing and comfortable. Take a breath. And when you're ready, roll back up to standing. Virabhadrasana 2, and we'll do a few variations. Extended lateral angle and revolved extended lateral angle on Exalted Warrior. Start with Virabhadrasana 2. Feet wide, right foot turned out, left foot turned in. Straighten the back leg, strengthen the back leg, sink into the back hip. Check the alignment on your right knee, center of the kneecap lined up with the second toe. Shoulders above the hips, arms floating, head turned to the right. Extended lateral angle. Bring the right forearm to your thigh or take your right hand to the floor, and then extend through the left side of the rib cage, reaching away with the left arm. Now, Exalted Warrior, take your left hand to your thigh, float the right arm overhead, and then revolving triangle, lengthen through the left side of the rib cage, place the left elbow on the thigh, bring your hands to prayer position, roll the right shoulder back, turning your head to look up, keeping the back leg straight and strong. And then bring both hands to the floor for a lunge. Step back into downward facing dog. Take a breath or two. When you're ready, step the left foot up into a deep lunge. Lift the back knee, straighten the back leg, and then coming up into Virabhadrasana 2. Left foot facing forward, the right foot back. Check the alignment on your left knee. Center the kneecap lined up with the second toe. Shoulders square with the hips, back leg straight and strong. Lengthen the left side of the rib cage. Bring your left forearm to your thigh. Reach through the right arm, extended lateral angle. If you get tired, lean on the left arm. If you have a little more energy, take the weight out of the left arm. Exalted Warrior. Take the right hand to the back thigh, raise the left arm. As you lift up and arch back slightly, allow for a very slight twist. Adjust so it feels good. Now rotate, bringing the left shoulder forward, lengthen through the right side. Bring your hands into prayer position with your right elbow on the outside of your knee. Take the left shoulder back, rotate your head to look up. Breathing into this position, again keeping that back leg straight and strong. Coming back to your lunge, step back into downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here. We'll be transitioning into Pigeon pose when you're ready, leading with the right knee. Bring the right leg forward, set the knee on the floor, slide the left leg back. Ease into a gentle, delicate stretch. Now, similar to learning how to enjoy contracting and strengthening muscles, we also have to be able to enjoy stretching. If a stretch is not pleasant, not enjoyable, it's almost always because you came in too deep, too quick, too fast. So come in slowly. Stop a little sooner. Find a stretch that's almost boring. Give the body a breath or two to see how it responds. If the body resists, move the left leg to the left and forward to ease up. On the other hand, if it feels good and you want more intensity, slide the left leg back further and to the right. Measure success by the quality of the sensation. When you're ready, downward facing dog. This time bringing the left leg through, set the left knee on the floor, work the right leg back, coming down onto your elbows. Shift the hips a little left or right. Make sure there's no strain in the knee joints. Find a subtle, delicate stretch in the left hip, outer thigh, or buttocks. Lengthen the exhale. After a breath or two, decide whether to back off a little or perhaps to work your way a little deeper into the stretch. Lengthen the exhale. When you're ready, roll your weight over onto the left hip and then swing the right leg around and in front of you and come up into a comfortable seated position. Sitting cross-legged, draw the flesh out from under the sit bones, roll out the shoulders, and take a breath or two. Just noticing how you feel. Next, we'll work with strengthening abdominal core. We want to try and engage the transverse, not just abdominal recti. So lengthen the spine, lift the chest, and draw the abdomen in. Draw the sides in. The knees bent, feet on the floor, or for more challenge, lift your feet off the floor. If that's too easy, straighten the legs. If you start to fatigue, hold on to the knees. Whatever variation you're doing with the legs, keep your back straight. If you can't sustain a straight back, bend the knees or hold on to the knees in order to maintain the length of the spine. Grab the back of the thighs, roll back one vertebra at a time, and take a breath or two. Interlace your fingers behind your neck. Bring your knees up to your chest. Draw the intestines up under the rib cage. Press the kidneys down. Curl the upper back off the floor. And then, if you need more challenge, extend the legs, keeping the feet 6 inches off the ground. If you get into trouble, bend the knees more. When you feel like you had a good workout, hug the knees, rock side to side, releasing any tension from the low back. One more time, interlace your fingers, curl the upper back off the floor, draw the intestines up under the ribs, draw the sides in, and then if you need more work, extend the legs away from you. You can do variations of the legs, spreading the legs, bending one knee or the other, or crossing legs over. And then hug the knees into the chest, rock side to side. Bring the feet to the floor, extend the arms overhead, take a breath or two. Relaxing into the floor with a sigh. Roll to one side and coming back up to table. And then coming down for Cobra. Plant your hands well behind the shoulders. Press the tops of your feet into the floor. Shrug the shoulders, lift the shoulders, draw the shoulder blades together and down the back. Once again, very gently. Try to engage that action with the shoulders, pressing down with the feet, shrugging the shoulders, rolling the shoulders back with just the right amount of action that it feels good. And then without losing that sense of pleasure in the contraction of the muscles, if it feels good, lift a little higher. Now play a little bit. Shift side to side, roll the shoulders around, reposition your arms, feeling your way, improvising. Keep your attention on the quality of the sensations you're creating and make sure those sensations feel safe and healthy and above all pleasant. Coming back into a classic Cobra. And then downward facing dog. Take a breath or two. Next we'll be working with a variation on staff. So sitting with your legs extended, hands either side of the hips, straight legs, and then without collapsing, keeping your torso vertical, lift one leg, a few inches, set it down, lift the other leg. Very easy to cramp the quadriceps. So let your goal be not to see how high you can lift your leg, but whether you can engage the quadricep without cramping, and even better, in a way that feels pleasant. Now we'll stretch out the quadricep. Half-bound Tadasana. Roll your weight to the right, take your left foot back, your heel next to your hip. Looking for a healthy, pleasant stretch in the quadricep on the left leg. If it's too easy, you can work your way back to your right elbow. If that's too easy, you can work your way back to your right shoulder on the floor. And if that's too easy, you can rotate to the left and let both shoulders rest on the floor. Find the position that feels best to you, and then focus on breathing and relaxing. For those of you that don't already enjoy this stretch, this is one of the more challenging poses to figure out how to do it just right where it feels good. 9 times out of 10, if it doesn't feel good, it's because you're in too deep or you came in too quickly. So backing off, relaxing, stretching the exhale. You can explore shifting the hips, the shoulders, finding your own way into the pose, trusting the pleasure of the pose. When you're ready to release, roll to the right, release the leg out in front of you, roll to the left and take the right leg back. Bring the right heel in close to the hips. If you already have a stretch in the right quadricep, you don't need to go back any further, but if you don't feel a stretch, work your way back to your left elbow. If that is too easy, work your way down onto your left shoulder. Looking for a healthy, pleasant stretch in the right quadricep without any strain in the knee or anywhere else in the body. Stretch the exhale. With each breath, seeing if you can let go. Calming the breath, calming the mind, and letting the mind calm the body. Learning how to relax into the stretch. Play a little bit, undulate, reposition. Again, feeling your way and trusting the sensations. When you're ready to release, roll the weight to your left hip, release the right leg in front of you, and then bending both knees, maybe 30 degrees, and keeping the knees bent as you lean into a forward bend. Grabbing your ankles or your feet. Keep the knees closer together. And then if it feels good, walk one heel away from you an inch and then the other as you continue to lean in to the hamstring stretch. Keep walking the feet away until you find the position that feels the healthiest, most pleasant stretch for the legs. Take a breath or two. And then coming back upright. Next, we're working with the back roll. If you have your own roller, take a moment to bring that out. If not, take a blanket, preferably a firm blanket, and then roll it up from one edge to the other. If you unroll it, it gets easier. If you roll it up, it gets more intense. Adjust the size of the roller so that you can relax into this exercise, but large enough that it's still interesting. Position the roll under the shoulders, arms extended. You can support your head, take the arms out to the side or overhead. If you can't find a comfortable position, unroll the blanket enough that you can relax. Take 4 or 5 breaths. With each exhale, letting your upper body get heavier. Occasionally, we'll be repositioning. To do that, you lift your hips barely off the floor, and with your legs push yourself over the roller and set the hips down so the roller has shifted down the spine 1 vertebra. Take 4 or 5 breaths and then repeat that. Slowly working your way down the length of the spine, 1 vertebra at a time, and in each position giving your body 3 or 4 breaths, giving it time to release, to relax, to surrender. Remembering to lift the hips and reposition occasionally. You should be about halfway down the spine by now. If you finished a little early, just go back and start over with the roller in the upper back. As you work your way down the spine, you may need to change the size of the roller depending what area of the back you're working on. If it gets too easy or too intense, reposition and unroll or roll the blanket thicker. When the blanket is down past the halfway point where you can grab it easily with your hands, then use your hands to reposition the roller. Lift the hips, move the roller with your hands, set the hips down again. 10 or 15 more slow, deep breaths to finish. If there's any area you've neglected, use this last minute to finish up. Those of you who have already finished, go back to a favorite spot. Now we're going to position the roller under the center of the pelvis so that when you lift your feet off the floor, bring your knees into your chest and hug your knees. Your hips are maybe 6 inches off the ground and the roller is supported. Hug your right knee into your chest tight, straighten the left leg away. Then take your knees apart and then bring the left knee into your chest, straighten the right leg away. And then reverse directions, take the knees apart, and this time grab your right heel with both hands and try to pull your right knee towards your armpit, straighten the left leg and let it hang over the roller. Switch sides, grab your left heel, pull the left knee towards the left armpit, straighten the right leg and let it drop over the roller. Now, grabbing both heels, reach to the inside of your ankles to grab the heels and pull both the knees in towards your armpits, and then straighten one leg a little bit and then bend it, straighten the other leg a little bit, bend it. Playing with this a little. And then hug both knees into your chest. Bring your feet to the floor, lift your hips, remove the roller, set it to one side. And then hug the knees into your chest again. And now working with a twist, either bring both knees to your chest and roll to the left, or straighten the left leg and bring the right knee to your chest and roll to the left. With your left hand, anchor the knee or knees, and with your right arm, twist away to the right, turning your head to follow. If you aren't completely happy where you are, experiment, explore, try different variations of the pose until you find a way of twisting that feels pleasant. Then focus on breathing. Remember a complete back breath, you can use that in this pose. And with each exhale, relaxing into the twist. And then, when you're ready, come back to center. Bring both knees, or if you want a more challenging twist, bring just your left knee to your chest. Roll your legs and your hips to the right, anchor the knee with your right hand, and then turn your upper body to the left. Turn your head to follow. If anything, your shoulder, your hips, your low back, if anything isn't completely happy, begin experimenting, modifying, adjusting, repositioning until you can relax completely and safely into the stretch. Then, begin thinking about how to make it feel more pleasant. Five or six more breaths. Feel the left shoulder lift a little as you breathe in. Hang a little heavier as you breathe out. Couple more breaths. When you're finished, come back to center, hug your knees, rock side to side. We'll be closing with Shavasana. You can take your rolled blanket, and if your knees or your low back feel vulnerable, you can use your blanket under your knees or your thighs to support. Or if your neck feels a little bit vulnerable, you can unroll the blanket partially and position it under the neck. The knees can stay bent, or if you feel comfortable, you can straighten the legs out. Shoulder blades drawn together and down, the chest open, the palms turned up, the back of the neck long. And in this position, breathing diaphragmatically. Feel the belly rise and expand as you breathe in. Fall as you breathe out. Allow the breath to become slower, smoother, more fluid, more wave-like. And with each breath, relax the face, the neck and shoulders, the arms, the hands, the fingers. The feet, the ankles, the calves, the knees, the thighs. Loosen hips, relax the buttocks. The low back, the belly, the kidneys, the ribs, the chest and the shoulders. The back of the neck, and soften the throat. The jaws, the lips, the tongue, the tip of the tongue, the belly and root of the tongue. Cheeks, and the eyeballs melt into the back of your head, relaxing the eyelids, the eyebrows, the forehead. The temples grow soft and hollow, and relaxing the scalp and the crown of your head. Bring your attention back to the breath, feeling the belly rise as you breathe in, falling as you breathe out. As you breathe in, imagine your consciousness floating, expanding, growing light and free. As you breathe out, feel your body grow heavier, dropping away, melting into the earth beneath you. very delicately. Bring your attention back to the breath and take a complete breath. Breathe into the belly and then continue with the ribs, the chest. And on your next breath, move into a lazy stretch. And then twisting, bending, stretching. Stiffen the body. And stretch. A little more, twist and turn. And then roll to one side. And push yourself back up to a comfortable seated position. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. And just as a takeaway, when I talk about learning how to enjoy the experience of practicing yoga, to start with, what I'm talking about are your favorite poses, but it's important not to stop there. Every week, choose a new pose that you haven't fallen in love with, that you don't know how to do in a way that you enjoy the actual practice of the pose itself, and then set your goal for that week to figure out a way of adapting the pose or changing your attitude towards the pose in such a way that you begin to enjoy practicing that pose. This is a wonderful exercise. If you can do this with your least favorite pose in an asana in your yoga class, maybe you can do it with other people in your life or other situations, and realize that by adjusting the situation slightly or adjusting your attitude towards the situation, you can reconnect in a more loving, compassionate way, whether it's with yourself or with others or with life. I'd like to thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Namaste.